Welcome to Ninon Speaks Media Image. I am Ninon de Verde Rosa, and I'm going to be entertaining you with my guests for the next hour. Yes, this is an incredible show, but it's only made incredible because our guests always are very interesting and have a lot to say. This is a platform that I give a lot of companies so we understand who they are. We give them the advantage of letting us know who they are, then maybe we can help them or maybe we can use them in our own business and also find out how they have created their business and how they have become very successful. So our guest today is Michael. He likes to be called, well, a lot of people like to call him Looney, and I'm going to find out why, Libis. And he's actually created 5 companies, 4 of his own, and he's done extremely well. He's written a book called The Next Step. We'll find out about that. He's opened another company very recently called Fledge. So let me introduce Michael Libis. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you for having me.
Well, actually, I was rather fascinated as to who you are and what you are, because you're kind of you're very laid back, and yet you sort of get it all done. So let's find out, when did you start realizing that you were an entrepreneur?
3 months into my first job out of college back in 1991.
Wow.
Uh, 3 months in, I was working at IBM, which doesn't even get listed on my LinkedIn profile. It was the wrong fit. I was clearly an entrepreneur, born and bred to be one, and so I quit and moved across the country and started my first software company.
And where moved across the country from one place to the other? Where was that?
I was working at IBM in Texas, in Austin, and picked a map and looked around and said, I can do software anywhere. How about Seattle? That seems like a nice place to be. Way before anything was in Seattle except Microsoft. Got in my car and drove out. So I'm
Wonderful.
there
So
ever since.
you were kind of a free and easy man there. You had no wives, no children, no nothing, and you could actually do whatever you wanted to do, correct?
22 years old in a car, yeah.
And you end up in Seattle. Seattle apparently is very much like England, as you can tell. I'm from England, and I've been to Seattle. It's a lovely place, actually. I quite like it there. It's very, very nice, and you obviously like it. You've been there many years. And so when you got to Seattle, what did you exactly do?
Um, well, like most entrepreneurs, I was trying to change the world. This was 92 by the time I made it out here. And the next big thing was supposed to be tablet computers. Uh, Back then, they called them pen computers, but they were tablets, and before the Palm Pilot, back in the days of actually before the Apple Newton. They were supposed to be huge. That was supposed to be the next big thing, and so I started a software company to create software for these new tablets. And we wound up being embedded on the Sony devices and the Motorola devices and the Philips devices and whatnot. But like a lot of entrepreneurs, we were just way too early. And the anecdote I like to point out is that Apple, when it came out with the iPad 17 years later, sold more devices in the first minute than we sold all devices in the 90s.
Really? Wow. So you can see the advances. Now, when you started doing this in sort of the early 90s, you didn't realize it was going to be like it is today, obviously.
Well, we hoped. We saw the vision, but the hardware and the software and the internet and wireless, everything just wasn't ready.
And yeah, but now you say you saw the vision. So if you saw the vision, you did realize that this could be something really, very, very big.
That's what we were hoping for, but again, that didn't work out. So
No.
of my startups, that's the one I shut down.
Yeah. Now I notice you've got 5 startups, and the 4 of them are your own. So what was your first startup company that you were successful at?
Well, actually, it's 6. I include Fledge in that.
Okay.
So 6 startups, 5 of which I founded or co-founded.
Mhm.
The only one that's not still running is Nimble, that first company. And so
Nimble,
everything.
which was what was it called? A pen computing. What on earth is pen computing? Is that
Um,
that
that's the term we use for tablets. They were tablets, but they didn't have the technology even then for pressing your finger on the screen. You had to use a digital pen. So
Yeah,
we
I
called
remember those pens you had to use, and that you would sort of rub around them or something. I forget now, so long ago.
a
Good
lot of
Lord.
things didn't work. So of the rest, they're still all selling products. They're still all
Yeah, you've got Ground Truth. What was Ground Truth? What was that? It says it's a mobile analytic.
Yeah, actually, if we go in order, there was Nimble. That one didn't quite work. Then Two-Way was my .com story. We were going public in 2000 when the market crashed on that one. Then I jumped to join a company called Informa, which became the second largest producer of mobile games and apps in the world before smartphones. Still going in some form. Then 2004 came around. Google went public, and it seemed a really good time to do search on phones. Search wasn't being done on phones, search and advertising. So I started a company called Medio Systems. They were in the news 2 weeks ago. Nokia is going to acquire them. And then getting to your answer, Ground Truth, I was at Medio. We were looking at what to do next. And I had noticed that there was this huge shift in 2008 or so, 2007. People were no longer holding the phone up to their ear. They were suddenly staring at it all the time. And I wanted to know what they were looking at. What mobile apps were they running? What mobile websites were they viewing? And wound up starting a software company or a mobile analytics, big data software company called Ground Truth to try and answer that question.
So with all these companies you started out, you obviously put your own money and time into them, and then you kind of lost. What are the ramifications, or how can you help anybody else out there that did the same as you, but not to lose? Why did you not succeed with the first few?
Well, the first one was just too soon. After that, it's mostly venture capitalist money, to be clear. Far less than mine than theirs. And they didn't all lose. Most of them are still going, and there are still potential exits.
And are they making money?
So there are, of the 4 remaining software companies, they are all up and running, and as far as I know, profitable.
Now, so you say as far as you know, which means you own them, and so do you have other people obviously in charge of all this stuff?
Well, I left, so I'm the kind of entrepreneur who likes to start companies but doesn't necessarily like to run them once they get up and running and big.
But do you still own them?
I still own small percentages of them, and one of the quirks of owning startup companies is they have no legal requirement to publish their financials. And as a shareholder, you have no legal right, at least in this state, in Delaware, to receive financials. So I don't know what they do.
So you don't. But then you get a check every month from them, or how does that work for your small ventures?
Sometimes, someday, someone comes along to buy them, and at that point, I get a letter from the lawyer saying you've made some money.
So do you think that's profitable, or where would you? To me, it doesn't seem like I'm that much interested in it because you're not that involved.
Just to be clear, I get paid to work. So just like anyone else, I do draw a salary.
You work for a company?
Whenever I've worked for any of these companies for the last 23 years, there's been almost every month I've drawn a salary.
Oh, so your own companies that you've sold, you draw a salary on?
Yeah, so the norm here when you do a large enough scale company is you get paid to do this.
Oh, so that's cool. So, well, you really don't mind what they do. I'm not going to say you don't care, because obviously you do care. You look like the caring type of man that you are, I hope. But so you do get a salary, and then you do what you need to do. Which is your favorite company? What's your favorite thing to do?
I have 4 kids too. You shouldn't ask that question as a parent. But the newest one is always the favorite one. So Fledge is by far my most favorite company. And
Fledge is very recent, I understand.
2 years, yes.
2 years old. And what does Fledge do?
Fledge is the Conscious Company Accelerator. We are a business accelerator that is focused on socially, environmental, health-conscious companies.
Really, and there's a bit of a controversial about all that because of people, saying about the air and this and that, and people don't believe what's going on, what's happening in this world. Obviously, you do.
Yeah, so we're out trying to prove that it is possible to fix major world planet-wide issues and make a profit at the same time.
But that's an awfully large statement to take care of the world. How on earth, and I think this is what people are really intrigued about, is how do you take care of it? Where do you start, and what do you do?
Well, there are many planet scale issues, right? War and poverty and climate change and whatnot. Now, I'm not claiming that business can solve all those problems, but business can make a dent in many of the problems. So, for example, if we simply focus on poverty and health in, let's say, Africa.
Okay.
One reason why the people of Africa are poor is not that they have no money, it's that they spend a proportionally large amount of their money on fuel to cook food. So one of the companies that I work with at Fledge is Burn Manufacturing. They produce a cook stove that uses half as much charcoal. So if you use half as much charcoal, you're spending, on average in Kenya where they're operating, call it $200 a year less on charcoal.
Now, in Africa, that's a big amount of money, because I've been to Africa. I actually happen to have done a documentary there in Africa. So I know how they live there, and the poverty there is unbelievable.
So if you're earning $2 a day, that's $600 a year, and if you're spending $300 of that on fuel, and you can take $150 off of that, well, then you're relatively rich. You're not rich, but you're relatively much better off.
They're far better off than what they were before, but isn't also that good for the pollution of the air?
It's good for the trees. It's good that the stove makes no smoke, so you're not inhaling the smoke. And you have more money to spend on something else, such as, let's say, another one of the companies that's changing over from kerosene lighting to LED lighting using solar panels.
And what's the difference? Oh, solar lighting. So you have these panels, and they reject the sun, and then they create energy, correct?
We have two of these. One, they're attacking it in different ways. The most recent is Caribou Solar in Tanzania. They have a business model where it's the same price as kerosene.
Oh, really? Kerosene is not that expensive, is it?
It's relatively cheap, but again, when you add up how much people spend on lighting, it comes out to be about $100 a year. And so if we can take the $100 a year off their plate in terms of burning kerosene, replace it with LED lighting, they get a better light, last longer, and again, they don't fill their homes with smoke. So we're solving.
That's true too. But now I'm going to ask you a question, because I'm living in Vegas, and the electrical bills here are extremely high. I've never seen anything like it, but I think they're sort of putting more tax. I don't know how they make them so high, but you talk about $100 a year in Kenya, and this is like $100 a month here. Well, it's not. It's like $150, $200 a month here. So why is it that different?
The per capita use of electricity and lighting is way higher. You have more lighting in your one room there on right now.
A lot of
homes have in Kenya, right? So
yeah, Kenya, they don't have all that. No, that's true.
Right, or Tanzania, or Uganda, or Rwanda, or most of the sub-Saharan Africa.
So in other words, what we're saying is that we kind of adapt to the way of living. I mean, if we live high, we live high. If we adapt to actually the amount of money coming into our situation, or how much we earn every day, week, or month, and we have to adapt to that. So Africa has kind of adapted to what they can bring in.
Sure, and let's flip this over to our local neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So Pledge doesn't just work in developing worlds. We work everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
One of the companies that's a fledgling is help solving the problem of banking in the United States, specific to lending to small companies.
Okay.
So, for instance, you may have, like I say, Las Vegas is not the most walkable city, but you may have a bakery nearby, or pizzeria, or some small store that you really love. Let's say it's a bakery, and let's say that they want to expand a little bit. They need another oven, and it's going to cost them $10,000 to get that oven installed and whatnot. Banks don't lend $10,000 anymore. It's just too small for them in terms of regulation and whatnot. But if a bakery went to their customers and said, we'd like to borrow $10,000 from you. We'll take it in $100 or $50 increments. You can buy a few shares if you like, and we'll pay it back out of the revenues generated from this new oven. Well, that might sound crazy, but there's a company, they're fledgling, they're called Community Source Capital. They've done this more than 20 times in the past year. They've raised more than $300,000 for, I lost count, 20-something small businesses. Mm-hmm. And they do it all online at $50 a piece, doing zero-interest loans. So if you love this bakery, you can buy what they call a square for $50, and they'll pay you back $50 in the next 18 months, 24 months.
I didn't realize, I've watched this thing and this is going to bring up something very interesting. I've watched this on actually the internet where they have these, what's it called, Indigo or something like that? Or yeah, where you can, is it? And you can, when people are sort of, their foundations or their businesses, and you can put actually money into this business or whatever. So I don't really know how that works. I'm going to be talking like from nowhere. But at the same time, I'm now going to say that I can remember in Haiti where they will get amount of money, say $500 or $600 or $1,000, and they will give it to a family, and this family will create a business, and then that money will get paid back. And they did this in Africa. They've done this in lots of places apart from America to help other people start their own businesses, like buy 2 cows and sell the milk.
Yeah, there's a huge variety of these things going on, mostly in the developing world. Muhammad Yunus started microlending. Or maybe microlending.
That's it, yes.
But we hadn't seen it in the U.S. We hadn't seen it for our own neighborhoods. So this is a startup that's doing it now in 3 states for our own neighborhood store.
So Fledge, and the name of the company is called Fledge?
No, their company is called Community Source Capital.
Oh, Community Source Capital. And is that your company or is that somebody else's company?
So Fledge helps other companies get started. That is one of 25 companies we've helped get started.
Wow, because with the dilemma we just had over the last few years, and with business going under and real estate and the whole bit, and I got caught up in the real estate. We won't talk about that. Well, we can if you like, but it's a sore subject. But anyway, and so people right now are finding it very, very hard to actually go into a small business. To actually have a shopping center, and they want to open a store. So now you're telling me rather than going to the banks, go to your friends and start asking, for 10,000, 5,000, whatever, and whatever increment you want to start it or get it going. Is this the new way of business?
It is a new way of business, yes.
Wow, because why do the banks not want to do this? Are they shooting themselves in the foot?
Just the way they're regulated and the way they're run. It costs them the same amount of money to set up a loan for $5,000 as $500,000, and so they'd rather have the loans out at $500,000 or $100,000 or $50,000. 5 is just too small. 5 or 10 or $20,000 is just too small to make them enough money to care about.
So getting back to, as you said, say America itself as a whole, not just a state, that you've now got to create your own business because they seem to be trying to get rid of the middle class, because the middle class are the people that seem to create the lower class and the higher class. When you have the middle class, it sort of keeps the balance, as I say. And what you're telling me, we can't keep that balance.
It's an interesting way to look at it. The other way to look at it is I think we're getting to the point where it's easier and easier to start a company. Right, the tools out there to start a company make it much cheaper and quicker than it used to be. The internet makes it possible to find customers far less expensively than it used to be. And so we're entering an age where many of the middle class should stop looking for a job and go create a job.
I think that's amazing. So are we, because the middle to older class people are very, they don't like change that much. They don't see the change. They're very happy where they are. They've reached their point. But I find that in this day and age, you've got to really change, especially what we just went through. So we're talking about the sort of, I'm going to call them the old middle class, because we really don't seem to have them much more. So they're now creating their own businesses?
Many are. There's over 500,000 companies started per year in this country.
Really? And what is the average amount of money that they're looking for to actually start that? Is it low? 5,000, 50,000,
I
100,000?
The Kaufman Foundation has research on this number, and I'm trying to remember where it is. It's in the tens of thousands is the average amount spent to start a company.
Yeah,
I
because it's
don't
quite expensive to start a company. I mean, I've started quite a few companies. Well, real estate, you obviously need capital, but I've been in it so long that I don't quite know where I am at the moment with it because we had such a disaster time through. In fact, today I just signed one of my last houses that I just sold, so I'm quite happy to. I just sold 3 houses, so I'm very happy to get rid of those. And now I'm looking to go into something else. What is the most prominent business that people are going into now? I used to call them mama and pop stores. Mama and pop start their own business. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. The research isn't very good in that space to know what these companies are doing. There's no
Yeah.
central repository, whatnot. What's in the news is software apps, but that's not the majority of companies. That's just the news covers those because they're exciting.
Is not the apps more for the younger generation? They seem to understand that app thing. They seem to understand where it's going. They know where to go on the computer to find things, whereas the older, and I'm talking about 45, 50, were a little bit less of trying to seek them out.
I resemble that remark. I'm old too. Um,
Oh, so we're in the same bracket, okay.
yeah, I don't know. I wish I had. I love market research. I love numbers, and unfortunately, we just don't have enough.
I
Research.
know you do, and I can tell you love numbers. I can tell you love, do you like to teach people? Do you do any teaching of this? I know that you obviously do a lot of research.
Yes. So again, my main business is teaching. It is helping companies get going. But in addition to that, I have a few other outlets as well. So in
So
the
what's your
model, I use,
outlets?
yeah. So in the model, I use a pledge. Many people apply from all around the world. We had companies from teams from 32 countries apply for the last session. Applications are open now for the next session. And we only accept 6 or 7. So we say no to almost everyone who asks for help, which
Wow. So you only accept 6 or 7 clients. Is that for each session? Now, how long is each session? I think it was 8 weeks or something.
yeah, it's 10 weeks per session.
10
And
weeks.
we keep helping them after that, but we're with them for 10 weeks. They're physically here in Seattle for 10 weeks.
Or they
Um,
have to come. They have to come, and you actually have not a one-on-one, but you have your clients, and you actually speak. You teach to them, actually looking at them and seeing them, not over the computer.
every day for 10 weeks.
Wow! And
So,
when they do this, do they sign up for a special program with you? Do you have different programs for people to come into?
no, everybody gets the same basic deal. It's we pay them to come. We write them a check to come to our program. We help them for 10 weeks. We invite dozens and dozens of mentors to come and talk to them, and 50 or more people come per session. And then we take an investment in each of those companies for the cash and the services we provide. So we become an owner in each company. But so that's Fledge. And then what bothered me about that business model is I said no to so many people. Right, hundreds of people didn't get to come. So I created a second program called Kick. Kick is a 6-week, twice-a-week program, so just 12 sessions. Mm-hmm. And now I'm licensing Kick to organizations around the world. There's 12 licensees. It's running or soon running in Victoria, Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, Sacramento, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and New York City in North America.
But kind of in your vicinity.
Barcelona and Athens in Europe, Kenya in Africa, and Tokyo in Asia. And we just started licensing 6 months ago, so this should grow.
And then I'm going to be very ignorant on this, even though I might know. I'm going to be very ignorant on this. So anyway, so somebody sees what you're doing. You actually pay for their fare. You pay them to be there for 10 weeks. And then they work for you in the company that you are going.
They work for their own company. We help them.
They work for their own company, but you now own part of that company.
Just a few percent.
A few percent. And this is, and you pay them to do this.
Yes. And it seems backwards.
Yeah, it is very backwards because normally it's the other way around. Normally they pay you to come and learn something and do something. Explain this.
All right. Well, I didn't invent this model. I found this model. It was invented in the tech sector 7 years ago. The basic idea is these are startup companies. They don't have any money.
No, that's right.
Charge them, they wouldn't be able to pay anything. Or if you tried to charge them a reasonable amount, they wouldn't be able to pay. So instead, we raise money as a fund. We find investors that want to invest in early companies. Well, we then pick the best of the best from around the world, and we write them the check to come. And between the cash and the help we're giving them, we earn a percentage of the company.
I think that's amazing. Do they not have a program like this on television where people come in? I forget the name of the program. There's a program on television. People come in and they've invented something and they put all this together and they come in and then they have these 4 or 5 people sitting there and they decide whether they want to invest in this company, put a 500,000 or a million in it or whatever.
Yeah, yes. There's 2. There's one in the UK and one in the US. At least 2. That's Dragon's Den and Shark Tank. But we're a lot nicer than that.
Yeah, I've watched that program because it was fascinating to me, and I thought, God, they're a little bit mean to these poor people that have, you know, because you can see that they're so enthusiastic about what they put together and what they've done and what they've created, and they come in and everybody says, I don't like it, and they give all these sorts of bad things, and then one of them will say, I'm going to invest in your company, and you just see these people just light up, and you see the energy because they put so much work and their thoughts and their whole kind of life into this.
Yeah, so imagine the good part. Imagine that I want to invest in your company, and then we get to work with them for 10 weeks every day.
I think that's, I'm going to call you. You're going to get in touch with you. I'm going to come and see what I've got that you might like. Because I come up with a lot of ideas of different things I like to do because I'm an entrepreneur. And I'm just like small potatoes compared to you. But I've been successful. I've done quite well with what I've done and where I've gone, and sort of, you know, haven't really had any help, and I've never had any financing from anybody ever. So yeah, I've always done it myself, and sort of, you know, and if I'm not making money, I realize how expensive I am, and so I have to make money. But it is harder, and it gets harder and harder. But real estate was always my thing. So where, and you might not know this because I don't think you're into it, but where is the real estate going? Because I don't think the real estate is what it used to be at all.
That's totally outside my realm of expertise.
Yeah, you don't know. Have you ever invested in real estate or
only the house that I live in?
Just the house you live in. That's not an investment. That's your home where you live. You know, that's, you know, you did buy it.
Yeah, with the downturn, the last one was not an investment.
There you go. So you teach these people. Now that is the 10-week course. Now what happens with the 6-week course? What does that consist of? That's a smaller course.
So same material, less time, less energy, less mentors, less everything. But we flipped it around where they do pay a tuition. It's small, but they don't pay it themselves. They go to their friends and their family and they ask them to please contribute to make this happen. So we accept everyone who applies. Anyone who wants help, any entrepreneur can apply and will be accepted. And then they're challenged to raise the money for tuition from their supporters to show that there's support for it. And then they get the help.
So what is your favorite out of when they come up with these ideas and they come up and say they've got this, say you've got these 10 people and they've got 10 different ideas. What do you kind of gravitate to that you know, because you're investing, or where you get your money from, your fund, not you personally, but where you're getting your money from. These people are investing, so you've got to make sure that these 10 people are pretty cool and pretty good. What would be your sort of favorite that you know that they're going to make money on this or it's going to succeed?
I would love to say that I do have a mathematical formula and whatnot, but it matches the intuition model. First and foremost, the thing I look for is, will this company, if it exists, make the world a better place?
Really?
If that's true, and secondly, is there some business model behind it? Is there a feasible way for them to do what they're doing to get money from customers in order to run their company? If they can do that and they will make the world a better place, that's a good investment.
So your challenge is to make the world a better place. But now I really think you're an amazing man, Michael, because I think that's beautiful. I think that we should. I've seen a lot of people actually gravitate the other way. See a lot of people not so friendly to each other, very rude, not really caring. But if you put the message out like you're putting out to make the world a better place, and the only way you can make the world a better place is to have contact with somebody else, because it's just not going to happen.
And the only way you can succeed at changing the world is to make a profit in doing so. Right? We've seen from decades that charity is not going to have enough impact. There's not enough money in charity.
I couldn't agree with you. I think charity used to be. I actually owned a foundation, so and I was actually making. I started something to help our children, our younger generation, because I saw them slipping through the cracks, and there was no communication, there was no television, there was nothing media or anything in the school. So I started a program called Voices of Tomorrow, and I gave them a platform. It was televised. It was a television show in Los Angeles, and I had these children come on, and it didn't matter where they were from, and a lot of them were very poor, but I let them know that they had a chance and they could get out there. So I gave them this platform to make themselves feel something, and have a communication, because I don't think you always. I think a lot of young people think you have to have money to make money. You're telling me you don't have to have money to make money.
Not necessarily. You need customers. Yeah, you want to make money, you need customers.
You need customers. So you need to have a rapport with people out there.
Yes, absolutely.
Now everybody has something, that they can do. I believe everybody has something. Whatever that is, that's something. How do they recognize what they have, and how can they get kind of involved in you? Because I think your program is really, really neat. I think it's just an incredible idea for a lot of people out there that feel that they don't have that opportunity, or they don't have a place to go. How do they get involved in you, and how do they start all that?
Well, I am trying to help as many entrepreneurs as possible, but I am limited in how many people I can talk to.
Of course.
So I created this Kick program so that I can spread the education of entrepreneurship wider. So other people are running it in other cities, not me. It's licensed in these other cities. So kickincubator.com is that website where they can see where those programs are running and reach out to see if we can find a director in their city. And then the teachings that I have, I boiled down what I know about entrepreneurship into a series of books. It's called The Next Step.
I saw that, The Next Step. I'll ask about that.
There's 6 that are published and 2 that are still being written.
Now, you wrote all these books.
Oh, yeah. They're all thin. They're all small.
Yeah, but that's even better, because when people see a big, thick book, they don't want to read it anyway.
Yeah, so I like to write 80 pages at a time. So there's 6 of them at the moment. They cover all the different topics required to take your idea to become a startup. So how to write a business plan, how to build a pitch, how to do a financial plan, sales and marketing. The next one up is funding a company, and a few more topics. So those are all on Amazon at the moment. They're also on a website, which is my website, lunarmobiscuit.com. That's the origin of Looney. You asked about that in the intro.
Yeah, how'd you get this name Looney?
Yeah, crazy long nickname, lunarmobiscuit.com. Search for my name and Google will find it.
Yes.
And on there are all the books and all my lectures that go along with the book.
Yeah, because I went to your website, and I was quite surprised by your website, because it had all these books and everything over there, and I thought, well, wait a second, it's got all these books, and each one has got to be something different, and it's so you have a set of books that they can buy individually. Do they buy these, or do they get them for free?
If you come into the program, you'll get access to the books for free. You don't physically get a book; you get the content for free.
Yeah.
But again, not everybody has 6 weeks to go through the program, and it's not running in every city, and so the books are there for everyone else in the world.
So you're giving a lot of people out there an incredible opportunity from your knowledge. You seem to be giving an awful lot of your knowledge away, and you don't seem to mind doing that. Why? Because so many people are so selfish.
I do charge for the books, but
oh yeah,
small amount. I've been an entrepreneur over 20 years. I woke up one morning many years ago saying it's time to give back. You know,
Really?
I seem to know how to do this. I have 5 out of 6 times made a company that's up and running, and finding customers and making money. So it's time for the rest of my life that I hand this knowledge back so that other people don't have to fail, so they can knock down the hurdles that get in the way and get their company run.
Now, when you help a company, and do you sort of in a nice way, in a quiet way, ask them to try to give back to somebody else that they see that might need help, that would, because that's obviously your aim is to help. You help this company, you get a little involved in it, you take a little percentage, but it's kind of their company. So it's kind of one of your things for them to give back to somebody else if they see them in the same sort of predicament.
I think that's just part of the culture of socially conscious companies. They just do that anyway. I don't have to ask them to do it.
Oh, that's nice. So, so this is of the choosing of the 10 people you choose in the first place, because you must go through an awful lot of people to get 10. What do you look for when you're looking for these 10 people?
Yeah, again, it's actually 6 or 7, not 10. 10 would be easier.
10 weeks, that's right, 6 people.
Yeah, 10 weeks, 6 teams, 7 teams. We wind up, everybody applies on an online system. There's a little video and a lot of text, and that all gets sorted through. And then it really comes down to the fact we take about the top third and we interview every single one of them online like we're doing right now.
Okay.
I can look face-to-face into their eyes or into their webcam and see who they are and interact with them. And the funnest days of that's a very long month of interviews. The very funnest days are the ones where I wake up at 5 in the morning and interview someone from India, and then an hour later at 6 in the morning interview someone from East Africa or Middle East, and then work my way across the time zones until it's like 2 or 3 in the afternoon and I'm talking to someone in New Zealand, and then I collapse after 5 interviews.
I think you would.
And so it really comes down. It's a people thing, right? Investing is about not just the idea, but who is working on that idea.
Yeah, who can you rely on? Who can you see that really wants to do this? Because there are a lot of phonies out there. There's a lot of people that want the quick buck and grab it, take it, and run. We know that. But there's also a lot of wonderful people out there that are really very, very sincere and very, very and they just need that break, and you kind of give them that break.
Yeah, and there are way more people who are great to work with than I have the resources to help.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So we've got hope in this world. There's a lot more nicer people there than bad people.
Oh, yeah.
I love the way you say that, yes. Now, what has been your greatest challenge in this of somebody not succeeding?
Oh, I hate that question.
They probably all succeeded. I don't know.
No, they haven't all succeeded. The biggest struggles just come in speed and time, right? So starting a company, I want to make it really clear, starting a company is exceedingly hard to do. Whether you fail or succeed, just getting it off the ground, getting from idea to $1 from a customer is a lot of work in a lot of different areas, and most people don't have strength in every one of those areas, so you have to build a team. Team dynamics get in the way. Teams blow up all the time.
Okay.
So just getting to that first $1 is a huge challenge. And what happens along the way is life gets in the way, and a family member gets sick, and all of a sudden that's your #1 priority, or something happens. Your kids need you more than your work, and so that gets in the way. And so it's just a matter of life getting in the way, stopping you from knocking down all those hurdles that are between you and success.
So it's a matter of being successful is to try to get over these hurdles and these things that get in the way, because, I mean, things can get in the way every single day, or you can allow them to get in your way. But if you have the tenacity that you want to succeed, you can overcome that, right?
It's more than tenacity. It's
hard work.
Usually takes. Usually things get in the way that you have no control over, that you don't know how to go around, And what kills most startups is they simply run out of time. Money's time. They have their own savings or other people's money. And if it takes you a month or two to run around this hurdle to get to the next thing, or if you went the wrong direction for 3 months and have to switch, you generally run out of money. And
so you're telling me that one of the most important things is to make sure that you've got a financial backing for at least a year. I mean, I've heard it's like 3 years you need to have. A year's a nice minimum, but what I've seen works really well is, and it's not just Fledge, it's other programs like ours. We get companies moving much quicker, which means they get into the hurdles much quicker, and we get them access to so many outside experienced, we just call them mentors, right? They're not mentors like we talk to them every week. They're experienced professionals. They can help you get through these hurdles, over and around these hurdles, much quicker than you could on your own. And so in the end, when you've gone through an accelerator, you have in those 3 months, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, whatever, in that short period of time, you've moved yourself forward 6 months in business planning, and you now have a team of mentors and advisors and whatnot that can get you through the next 6 months quicker. So yeah, I understand. So it's the team and the people you surround yourself with to help you get where you need to get.
Yeah, it's the let's say the capital T team, not just the people who work for your company, but the people who are helping your company.
Financially. So it seems to me that there's a financial and a work ethic in this thing.
I think it's much more than financially. It's who's there who wants to see you succeed. What contacts do they have? What experience do they have? How do they help you get by, and how can you work with them, as volunteers or investors or whatnot, to get where you need to be, again, to get to that first dollar or the first $100,000.
If somebody falls through the cracks and they've had your program and you've put quite a bit of money into them or whatever you've put into them, do you give them, some of them, I'm not going to say all of them, do you give some of them a second chance?
Everybody gets supported for as long as they need support. We don't give them any more money. We only invest once. But we do everything we can to get them up and give them sometimes a kick in the pants and sometimes a hand up, depending on what they need. And more introductions and more people to help them and whatnot. As long as they keep moving the ball forward, we keep helping them move that ball forward.
They're willing, and sometimes it might take them a little longer, but you see they're willing and they're making progress, and it might not be as fast as somebody else. How much money, and I don't know if you can answer this, you might not want to, how much money do you average to give somebody to help them, to start them up and everything, or how much do you advise them to have? And I guess it depends on the business.
Totally depends on the business. We give out a stipend, which is just enough to be here in Seattle for 10 weeks and get your company just started. So in the upcoming session, that's $17,000 US. Right? Not a huge amount of money, but way more than zero.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot more money than they could probably ever get themselves to do what they're doing. I think that's pretty cool.
These are, remember, we're picking what we think are the best of the best. So
yeah, you're getting creme de la creme. Yeah, of course. You're not going to give $17,000 to somebody who's going to, twiddle it away. Of course not. You're not going to do that.
So I'm surprised when they can't raise another $20,000, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000. But we're giving them just enough to get going, and yeah, it varies from company to company between no more. Some companies I work with, that's good. That's all they need. And our cook stove company I mentioned, they raised a few $1 million because they needed to go build a factory in Kenya to go build cook stoves.
Yeah. Now, what is the youngest you would take on this?
Age doesn't matter. We had some 23-year-olds in the last session.
Really? And
yeah,
so you gave a 23-year-old that opportunity. That's amazing. Hats off to you.
I gave a team of 3 23-year-olds that opportunity, and another team, I think the older brother was 23. It was a team of brothers, and I don't remember how old the anyway. There was a bunch of 23-year-olds in the last group.
So did this give you great satisfaction, enjoyment? Because this is obviously a little bit where you're at, because I can tell by our conversation that to helping these young people to actually make something of their life where if you weren't there it would be so hopeless for them and it would be so hard for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure how hopeless it would be, but yeah, it is for me it's the world's best job. So I get to help 12 or 15 companies per year via Pledge get going and get going faster.
I think that's incredible. Now, what has been your greatest successful story of somebody that's come out of the blue and you've helped them and they've become so successful?
Oh, it's too soon to. I used that joke before. It's too soon to rent the aircraft carrier.
We don't have the private jet, right? Not yet.
There's an aircraft carrier for rent down in San Diego, but I'm not going there yet. We're only 2 years old, so ask me again in maybe 3 years, and we'll have.
Oh, so you're only 2 years old. Okay, and you look older than that, but anyway, my joke.
The company's only 2 years old.
Jesus, as usual. But what I'm saying is that there's only 2 years old, and you've done very, very well so far, and you feel this is going to take you 5 years to 6 years to actually establish itself. But though you've come a long way in 2 years.
Yeah, my prediction is that on average it takes 5 years for one of these companies between the time they show up with Pledge and the time we can say that this is a successful, profitable company.
Okay. And now the book you have, which is called The Next Step, we talked a little bit about it, but the next step, what is that exactly? We all know what a next step is, but what exactly does that mean on your books?
So this started, I teach in an MBA program here in Seattle at a school called Pinchot. Their tagline is a university for the common good. It used to be called the Bainbridge Graduate Institute. It was founded by the grandson of Gifford Pinchot, creator of the National Forest Service.
Okay.
So his grandson's named Gifford Pinchot as well, hence the name of the school. I started teaching there about 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I had taught once before, but I hadn't really taught before. I never taught as the lead teacher in an MBA program.
That is really high.
It's a really high bar, and so I went to the library and I basically was looking around for the book that everyone uses to teach entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have a book for that, and I went to Amazon, which has every book, and I searched for the book that people would use in an MBA program to teach entrepreneurship, and lo and behold, there is no book. So I sat down and wrote the book. So that was...
That's fascinating, because how did you learn? You didn't have a book to learn by.
Well, I learned on the street, so I learned from starting startups. By then I had started 5 startups, and I sat down and said, well, if I were to teach, which I'm going to do by the way, they only give you 5 weeks notice. So if I were to teach 3 weeks from now, what would I put in the syllabus and what would I teach? And so I sat down and wrote an outline and then wrote a book to match.
So you had to find out from yourself, how you're going to teach what you want to teach.
Yeah, and I only had a few days, so I took a few days, and I literally sat down and wrote a book in a few days.
You wrote a book in a few days, so you're telling me that anybody can, not anybody, but you can write a book in a few days. Listen, I wrote a book. My book wasn't anything like yours. It was all about volunteering and job. But I never thought in a million years that I would ever write a book. So I think when you think that you don't think you're going to do something, you just never know, because you can't close any door. All those doors have to be open.
Yeah. Writing a book wasn't on my bucket list, but it was, it's like I'm an entrepreneur, and so when faced with a challenge, my first instinct is, does anybody do this? And my second instinct, when the answer is no, is, well, then I guess I have to do this.
Well, then I've got to do it, and I've got to put it together. How do you get all this time? How do you manage it? Because I can see that you're very focused on each thing you seem to be doing. How do you get there? Just for our audiences out there, whoever's watching, how do you stay focused on all these different things that you do? Because you're doing a lot of things.
Yeah. So I get that question a lot. If you're an entrepreneur, don't try and emulate this.
Okay.
I only do one thing. So all I do is help entrepreneurs, and so every day I wake up, I do email, I talk to people. It's all related to helping entrepreneurs. I simply do it as 3 brands. I do it as Pledge, I do it as Kick, and I do it as The Next Step. All right, all of them being me, but depending on who the entrepreneur is, those are the 3 tools 4, because the 4th one's Pinchot. Yeah. So depending on who they are, I'm interacting with them under one of these brands and one of these programs. And Pledge has a timeline, and Kick has a timeline, and you know, when none of those timelines work, I point them to the website to go get the books.
Because I see, so you have like 4 different channels of what you're going to help an entrepreneur with, and then you find out what they want, and then you can do that one. So you've got yourself pretty well organized within your head as to what you're going to teach this particular person. And do you find out that when some of these entrepreneurs, they come in and they want to do one thing, and then as you're talking to them, you find out they might be better at something else? Does that happen?
Oh.
Does it get switched?
Absolutely, yes.
It does. Do they mind that?
You know, I never asked. As long as I get help.
Entrepreneur as of many things.
I get satisfied if they find help. And again, I'm limited on how many I can help through Pledge, and I'm limited on where Kick is running, and I don't pick the students that come through the MBA program. They just show up, and I'm told how many to teach and who they are.
Yeah. So what is this BGI? What is this? What is this Graduate Institute? This Bainbridge?
It's been renamed Pinchot. So it is this school that I teach.
The same thing. So that's the same as the MBA thing you're teaching.
Yeah, the BGI is the school within Pinchot. It's the business school within Pinchot.
Okay. So now that you've got all this together, now what have you got cooking in your head now to do? Because you've obviously you've got something else sort of cooking there, because you seem to have all these very well organized, and you've got yourself organized. You've got how many children? You said 4 children, 5, 4?
Yeah, four children. I'm done with channels, I believe. The next thing on my list is a few more books, because there's some topics that still need some more details in.
And what topics are those?
The realities of funding a startup.
Okay. Oh, the reality of I like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every book I've read and seen in funding all talks about venture scale funding, how to talk to VCs and whatnot. Most companies never even get to talk to VCs. So I want to talk about real funding. How to apply these tools in the next step to nonprofits and co-ops and not-for-profit businesses.
Yeah. Now I'd like to ask you a little bit about these not-for-profit, because I had a foundation myself, and actually I filled out all the papers to have a 501c3. I had it for 16 years. I had it because I could not get funding for my children's program, so I opened up this Kids Talk Foundation and got funding through there. Now, I did not need much money because of what I was doing. I wasn't making any money for myself. I didn't want any money for myself. What I was doing was I was giving back to the younger generation, which is because I had been so successful. Like you, I'd done very well. I'd been very successful, and I wanted to give back. So this is why I did it. But when I did my foundation, I started that in 1996, foundations now, a lot of people are opening them up and keeping the money for the administration, and it's not really going to where it's going. It's given foundations a bad reputation. How do we rectify that? How do we know that the money we actually do give, that a lot of people do give, and we've seen a lot of the scams. I mean, you and I both know.
I don't know how to answer that question. The only companies I work with in the nonprofit sphere aim to be revenue-generating companies, but don't aim to be so profitable that they want to be for-profits. So in the realm of companies that do good in the world, that make the world a better place, some choose to be nonprofits, some choose to be for-profits. I kind of just lump those into this name of revenue-generating companies.
So you go to a company that's well known, because I know a lot of the big companies, big corporations, started their own foundations so that they had all this excess money, and then they could put their excess money. They had their own foundation that they could then put different things through this foundation.
That's a different realm in the nonprofit sphere than I play in. I work in companies that want to make money from customers.
Yeah. You want to do it the right way.
Again, there are, we're not going to solve malaria with a for-profit company.
Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. So your challenge now is to try to sort of start up another company, which you seem to be your challenge all the time. For our younger generation, how can you, because you're very knowledgeable, you're very sincere, and I think any of the young people are listening to you, how would you encourage them to start their own company, or to either get in touch with you, or how could they find the honesty out there of what they really want to do, and how would they do that?
Actually, I'm going to point you to another book.
Okay.
There's a great book out there. It's called The Lean Startup, written by another entrepreneur named Eric Ries. And I talk about it in my first book, but he talks about it in an entire 200-page book. The core concept that I've been doing for a long time, didn't have any name for it till Eric named it. You have your great idea. You know it's a great idea. No one else believes you. You have to find some small version of it that you can bring to customers so that they can buy something, so that they can say no more often than yes and tell you what's wrong with your idea. You can learn from that as quickly as possible. Speed is important. And with that effort, you could, if you succeed, right, if you get people to say, yes, I would buy that, or yes, I will buy that, you then have, excuse me, you then have the story to go back to investors or others, team members. You then have enough oomph to go back and make a company out of it. So the flaw that we saw for decades was that people had a great idea, then went to raise money, then spent the money, then found out their idea was not so great. And the flipped version of this that Eric has named the Lean Startup is no. Take your idea, bring it to market before you spend any money on it, or spend as little money as possible.
I love that idea. I just love that. Before you spend any money, because a lot of people do that, and it's funny because when I was in real estate, we bought a lot of shopping centers, strip centers, and you got a lot of these couples would come in and they've saved like 20, 30,000, and they're going to open up a donut store or a pizza place, and they've never done it before. Yeah. And it would break our hearts. My husband and I would break our hearts because after about 4 months, they put all this money in, they lost all their money, can't pay the rent. They had no idea what they were doing.
Yeah, so I don't know how you do that. An MVP for a donut shop. Well, MVP for a restaurant is now called a food truck, right? So for a tenth the startup cost, you have a food truck. You can see if anybody wants to eat your food.
So you start with a food truck. So you start small. You test the waters.
Yeah, this is called a minimal viable product, or MVP. So the minimal viable product for Fledge, my 10-week program, was a weekend. We invited entrepreneurs to come for a weekend, bring their ideas. We would help them for Friday night through Sunday night, and we proved that they were great people to work with, and we proved by talking to them that they wanted a 10-week program.
That's
right,
nice.
And it cost us a few hundred hours of our time to organize it, and almost.
Now I'm going to go to the other extreme. You've got the older generation, a lot of the older generation that have lost a lot of money over the last few years with all the banks and the different things that happened, and a lot of them feel they're not. People don't want to employ them because they're too old or whatever. How do we help them to maybe they've got a few little bit of money left? Who knows? But say they don't have any money and they need money to live on. How do we help these people?
I think they actually have the advantage because they have so much life experience, right? This is a problem with the 20-somethings, right? Anybody older than 35 has some life experience, and something in their life likely bugs them. Something along the way, from getting up in the morning to going to sleep at night, feels like it's not done in the best manner possible, right? Okay. Either socially the best manner possible or just efficiently.
Okay.
And those are some of the great ideas that come along that are breakout hits. And you can go all the way to the tech side, back to my history. I don't generally read magazines on paper anymore. They come on the tablet, right? I don't read the New York Times in paper form most days. I read it on the tablet, right? And so that we didn't even know there was friction in there, but I get to read a whole lot more because it shows up electronically on the tablet. That's out of reach on most people, but yes. We'll go back to another one I talked about, but this idea that as you go about your business, when you stop at that bakery and they need $10,000, two people, one's in his late 20s, one in her early 40s, let's say, early 40s, late 30s, right? They saw this problem, they decided to fix this problem, right? And they didn't fix it by going to the bank. They didn't fix it by, they fixed it by looking at regulations and figuring out how to do this legally. Um, there's a lot of little things in life that come along that way. And if you can be the one that says, "Oh, I see how to fix that," then there's an opportunity for you to make a job and a business out of it.
So be willing to reach out, be willing to make that step, be willing to get out there, be willing to work, be willing to understand, and to also use your knowledge rather than saying, I'm too old, let's see where I can help with my knowledge and maybe help somebody in the younger generation that doesn't have the knowledge I have.
Yeah, and that's so. I'm talking the extreme version. The next version is great. Go find the startup weekend running in your town or any entrepreneurial program. Take your experience to them and say, "Hey, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone out there that needs this? Whatever that is, marketing help, design help, printing help, operations help. Right? These young entrepreneurs have no experience. They need the experience."
So
If you go in and give back, you will find the more you give, A, the more fun you'll have, but B, the more opportunities will come along, and who knows, you may think you're unemployable, or you may think you're less employable, but lo and behold, there's a startup that needs you, and as soon as they're funded, they'll hire you.
So I think we've actually covered the whole, but we've come to the end of our hour. But I think you've been absolutely amazing, Michael. I'm absolutely totally blown away with you. I'm extremely impressed. I must admit that I was getting a little nervous yesterday because we were trying to get this thing done. But understanding you now, nothing's impossible. It'll all work out, and it's all going to be fun because that's the confidence you have within life, and I love that. And I just love the way that you have a heart of helping people, and we need to spread that more of other people helping other people, and I think that's just amazing. I just think it's wonderful. How can they reach you again, Michael?
Best way to find me is on my website, which is lunarmobiscuit.com.
Okay.
Just search for Libes, Libes, at Google, and it'll find it.
Okay, well, to my audience out there, we've had Michael Looney, Libius, and we had an incredible conversation of how you can start your own business, how you can do your own thing. Don't be afraid. Call him, get in touch with him. He'll be willing to help you. But he seems to like to help people that are willing to help themselves too. So don't forget to tune in next week to another show, Ninon Speaks Media Image. Don't know who my guest is yet, but they're out there. And I shall be back again next week. Thank you so much, Michael. You've been amazing. Just absolutely loved it. Very informative. I shall be in touch. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We're done.